The truth is that in the emotional buy has shifted, right? It used to be we buy from desire, but now we avoid from distaste and disgust is what I say. We are so bombarded by promotion and promises and clickbaits and overpromise, underdeliver that we are naturally distrustful. We're a very highly sensitive audience. So now in more of like, you as a seller, you cannot get me emotionally excited to buy something, right? It's really about the first 3 minutes, okay? It's about engaging your audience in those first 3 minutes so they come to I call it the foundation of understanding. So they fundamentally understand the core values that you are bringing and the core of the information. You're not saving things for minute 17, minute 9, right? And again, it's the 4 steps called the WAC method, which is here's what I do, here's how I do it, here's how I can prove it, and here's how we work together. I lay that out in the first 3 minutes, sometimes less. And then, it's a great question.
Hi, it's Robin Sharma, and you're tuning into the Millionaire Student Show with Sashin.
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 Sashin. Sashin. Sashin.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode on the Millionaire Student Show, where I get the opportunity to pick the minds of this generation's thought leaders, change makers, disruptors, innovators, and inspirations. Dissect their story from the pain they went through, the price they paid, and what their prize looks like today. I formulated the Millionaire Student Self-Development System and Company because this is what I was searching for when I first entered the entrepreneurial world at 17 years old. My mission and purpose is to serve you with virtual mentorship to consciously make your clock tick without taking the thunder away from today's guest. He's an award-winning film director, a veteran television producer, #1 best-selling author, C-level sales and presentations coach. From a humble beginning in Canada, he worked his way through the ranks of Hollywood, being named to the Hollywood Reporter's 30 most powerful reality TV sellers. He has sold more than 300 TV shows and movies, ran a TV network, and helmed one of the largest production companies in the world with smash hits like The Biggest Loser, MasterChef, Extreme Makeover, and Bar Rescue, to name a few. With over 20 years of experience in producing, creating, and directing TV shows and movies, he has developed some of the most advanced pitch and presentation techniques that he now teaches to people from all walks of life. In his #1 best-selling book, The 3-Minute Rule, his details a simple, straightforward system that helped hundreds from Fortune 100 CEOs to presidents use top-level Hollywood storytelling techniques to simplify their message and pitch their business, product, or service in 3 minutes or less. The Millionaire Students, please help me welcome today's guest who has endless energy, quest for adventure, and the 3-minute rule has helped him make one of the most sought after C-level consultants in the world, Brant Pinvidic. Brant, thank you so much for being on the Millionaire Student Show today. I tried to wrap up your introduction in under 3 minutes, and I definitely sold the viewers and listeners to tune in for the next hour. So thank you so much for being on the show. I truly appreciate it.
Absolutely pleasure to be here. Absolutely.
Definitely. I'm glad we connected on my last trip to Los Angeles, where I truly got to know you, where I got to understand your pain, which is your journey, your price, which you paid throughout that journey, and your prize, which is the success you've accomplished. For those who don't know you, maybe they've never heard the name Brant Pinvidic or read your book, The 3-Minute Rule. How did it all formulate to the person we see today?
It's interesting. I got into television about 20 years ago, came from Canada, was a really struggling entrepreneur in Canada, always just trying to find my way. never had anything that clicked until I moved to the US, had a TV show that NBC bought, and everything else just started to work. And it was amazing because that's really where I was meant to be and what I was meant to be doing. And when I found that, it really just accelerated my desire to be exceptional at things. When you find some success, it really makes you crave more. And so that really helped the building blocks of what later became 3-minute rule, which is how I sold and created so many television shows, because I developed a pitch and presentation style process that I could break down any idea, put it into the core statements of value, find a way to make other people understand it clearly, and then walk people through what was expected next and how we work together. And that formula started to translate about 5 years ago. I started working with a lot of companies that were looking to raise money or pitch to investors, change their products. And I was able to help them the same way I was helped selling TV shows, bring out ideas. And the more that happened for me, I just realized that that's really where my heart was at, is that I was actually affecting people's lives, making television, not so much, but that actually had real impact on people. And I got addicted to that really quickly. So I was lucky enough to sell the book to Random House. And that sort of was the kick in the butt I needed to be like, hey, let's go do this for real. And it's been just incredible since then.
Well, congratulations, because I know your book was a New York Times bestseller. And I definitely want to talk about the nits and the grits a bit later into it. But I want to go and dig deeper into a bit more of your story. Talk to me about your humble beginnings in Canada. We have a global audience tuning in from both third world and first world today. And the perception could be, well, people from first world countries have an advantage. They're situated in the right environment where success miraculously formulates. And I want to get that humble beginning story, that pain that created your passion, that frustration that created your freedom, and that mess that created your story today. What did the humble life look like and feel like?
You know, for me, it was interesting because it was a real struggle when I grew up in Canada, because I was kind of a serial entrepreneur, not by choice, but because nothing I did really worked. And it's because I was so focused on big ideas and trying to package together interesting, new, innovative things. And what I wasn't good at I wasn't good as an operator. I didn't know how to run a business properly. I wasn't a great manager of people. I didn't know how to I didn't have the accounting background. I didn't know all those day-to-day operation things. I just had big ideas. And where I came from, and sort of Canada doesn't have the same celebration of ideas and potential and maybe. It's very conservative in the sense of, you know, what are you doing out there? Why would you be trying these crazy stuff? That doesn't make any sense. That's what I dealt with every day. And it's very frustrating and very almost debilitating. And so I think I don't think it matters where you're from, first, third, second, fifth, ninth world. I don't think that matters as much as your ability to find where you belong in that place. And for me, when I recognized that Los Angeles and Hollywood and entertainment, that's where I belong. Like those were my people. That's who understood me, who celebrated me, who wanted what I had to offer. It allowed me to excel at something. And when you're good at something, you enjoy it. When you enjoy it, you want to do more of it. When you do more of it, you get better at it. And so you need those things in succession. And to have that happen, you kind of need to be in the right place and with the right people. And changing your circumstances, changing your surroundings, changing your peer group for the sake of just doing that doesn't change the scenario. You got to find where you fit first, and then everything kind of falls in place.
So a lot of people listening in and probably watching in, they might have that perfect idea. They might have the right mindset, but they're stuck in the wrong environment. They're pitching their idea to the wrong people. So I know you started off in the movie and TV show industry. And, what was your biggest takeaway, life lessons and experiences from that industry, that world that we don't experience from a viewer's perspective?
Yeah, and it's a really good analogy because people come to Los Angeles, every day trying to find fame and fortune in the entertainment industry. And I think it's a perfect example of like finding the right place. And sometimes you got to be a little bit more honest about what your abilities are, what your background is, what you're going to be able to do, your history, and what's real. And because I get pitched so many times from people who aren't in the business that think that basically what I do is just easy. You just wander around coming up with television show ideas. And the truth is this is an incredibly sophisticated, incredibly seasoned business with big ticket items. It's highly lucrative when it works, which means competition here is second to none. And there is no room for ambiguous generalities. It's not, hey, let's do lunch. That doesn't exist here. It's a caricature. The truth is, this is a get to business now. What do you provide? What do you offer? How can I monetize that? Everything else is a waste of time. So it really taught me how to simplify my ideas and get the value out quickly. And I think it's important for other people to understand that that's really where your value is as well. And so to find the right place where you belong, you also need a base of reality too, which is if you think you have a great idea, but it's in an industry you would know nothing about, the odds of it being a really great idea are almost none. And if you don't have a reasonable probability of success, you are making things harder for yourself. And that's what I tell people when they say, I have a great idea for a TV show. Can I pitch it to you? And I was like, yes. And they pitch it to me and it's like, okay, here's my suggestion. Never think of that idea again. Don't spend another second of your day ever thinking about how to sell a reality television show in Hollywood, because it's never going to happen. You don't live here. You don't work here. You've never been in it. You never made a TV show. The odds of you figuring out how to make that work just randomly in your kitchen table is zero. I've sold hundreds of, I have sold hundreds of television shows, and not one has come from outside the business. Not one single idea.
What was that shift for you from the movie and TV show industry to speaking, training, and now you're an author? What was it, a mental shift? Were you missing something? Or did you feel that there was a gap that you needed to bridge the two together?
It's a great question. In the transition for me was something I made inside probably 2 years ago, because I fell out of love with television, because it really turned into almost like what I would say on stage. I say it's selling widgets, right? Like once you sell your first show and make your first movie and all those things, it becomes a business. It is not sexy. It is not glamorous. It's none of those things. It's not even really creative after a certain point, right? You are delivering a product to a certain parameter, and that is like manufacturing something. So once, the IMDb credits get a few pages long, it's like, okay, why am I doing this? I've made some money, got some recognition. Like another TV show doesn't change emotionally the status of the way you feel about yourself. But when I would take a company and I would work with the CEO and I could see the pain in their face of not being able to get people to understand how great their idea was or what their product was able to do, not be able to move things to the next level, that their pitch was actually holding their business back. And all I had to do was unlock that for them. And that's what I do best for a living. It was a completely different experience. And for me, I'm like one chromosome away from a caveman. My ego barely fits in a room. You tell me how pretty I am and I am like yours, right? So when people are like, you changed my life and you've given me something I never thought I could get, and I'm so happy, and I'm just like, oh, I need some more of that.
So I know you've mastered the art of pitching. I know you've mastered the art of sales. People either love it or they don't. They either, use it for themselves or they use it helping someone else succeed. And, sales and pitching is undoubtedly a skill that everyone should master. I believe we are all selling in life, daily, in fact. We began selling as early as we're in the toy store, selling our parents on buying us what we want. How can people fall in love with sales?
It's actually really easy, because the problem with sales in general is that you are trying to take what you know and get somebody else to understand it. And this is what I say, if your audience understood your business, product, or service the same way you did, well, then they'd have to be interested because you're interested. That's why you're there. You know every detail, you know every nuance, you know what makes it great, you know what makes it powerful, and you're excited and you've dedicated your life to it and you work there. There's a reason you went through a process to get there. Now, if you could get somebody else to go through that knowledge-based process and to see the value the same way you see it, well, then you'd be having more success because people would be in the same boat you are. And that's really all pitching, presenting, selling really is. It's like, I have some knowledge. I want to convert that into your understanding. And what's the best way to do that? And what I found is the best way to do that is in a simple, clean, clear, crisp way that effectively mimics the way people make decisions. We make decisions as humans. We conceptualize the idea, number one. We contextualize that as how it works for me or how I'm related to that. And then we actualize, meaning how do I get involved? What does it cost? Do I appreciate that value, right? Who's doing it? Those are the 3 steps we do to make any decision. And you can actually mimic your pitch to fall along those same decision line points. So by the time someone's making a decision, yes or no, they have as much knowledge as you can possibly squeeze in there. And about 3 minutes is about all you're going to get. And great exercises. Anybody now knows that when someone's come to pitch or present them something, sometimes in the first 30 seconds, maybe 15 seconds, you've already said yes or no in your mind. You've already got the initial yes or no. And it's because the person pitching you didn't take you through the proper steps of that, I call it the rationalization story, how you will rationalize your desire for it. And when I pitch or present, I walk my audience through a story of knowledge. Here's how I'm going to give you the basis of knowledge so you can make a decision as to what's next. And that's just a very, very powerful way of pitching and presenting.
I mean, whether it's $10, $100, $1,000, 100,000, or even more, there are millions of transactions taking place as we speak right now. How do people know they're getting sold to? And how do they observe the seller with regards to how good he or she is versus how good the product or service truly is? Because the human brain is sold on emotion. The average salesman out there is selling on emotion. So we become so compulsive, we buy things we don't need in the moment and then realize when we get home, we don't need it.
The truth is that in the emotional buy has shifted, right? It used to be we buy from desire, but now we avoid from distaste and disgust is what I say. We are so bombarded by promotion and promises and clickbaits and overpromise, underdeliver that we are naturally distrustful. We're a very highly sensitive audience. So now, in more of like, you as a seller, you cannot get me emotionally excited to buy something, right? I worked with a very, very large hotel chain on their entire system of their timeshares. And timeshares traditionally have been sold by getting you to a resort, getting you in the moment, having some pina coladas, and then being like, yeah, let's come here every year. And you sign up, right? And what they've been finding is that just doesn't work anymore because people are programmed to it. And so now I'll give you a perfect example, and I use this on stage a lot. You can see the difference between selling and informing, right? I use the inform and lead method as opposed to the state and prove method. Let's say I was going to cater your wedding and I had a chef that was going to be the chef for the wedding and going to be there. And I wanted to sell you on my idea. And my chef was actually Gordon Ramsay. He was going to show up at your wedding. How many words would I need to sell you that idea, right? I have Gordon Ramsay. 4 words. Because I am that confident in the value of what I'm bringing to you. Okay. Now, if this chef that I had was my brother-in-law, ex-convict, just got out of jail, never really cooked anything, but really needs a job and is really mean and is forcing me to do this, how many words would I need to sell you on my brother convict that doesn't cook, right? I would be coming up with all kinds of distractions and, hey, oh, have I got a chef for you, right? And you and your lovely bride or your groom-to-be would know that. You'd smell it a mile away, okay? So here's the formula. The greater the value you believe your product, business, or service has to other people, the fewer words you will use. And it is a scale. And the more words you use, the more you will be telling your audience consciously and subconsciously where you fit on that value scale. The more words, the lower the value.
Incredible. So before we dissect your book, the 3-minute pitch, and before we even dissect the how, the why, the what, and the skills to implement to master the 3-minute rule, I want you to sell me. So I know you talked about the Gordon Ramsay, but let's just say I'm that person that owns let's just say I own a media company, or pick something that you would generally, that's a common denominator amongst businessmen today. And I want you to sell me using your strategy in 3 minutes. So the listeners can actually hear, they can get a sense of what the end result is. And before we even begin, I want to put this on time. I want to time this 3 minutes to see your pitch on selling me. And it could be anything, any price line, any cost, any product, you pick it.
All right, let me talk about one of my new clients that did really well. The company's called Xro, and it's a technology company. So the issue is they're a public company, and as a public company, they are consistently out in the marketplace talking to investors. So when a company does that, they have a very specific audience, right? They are looking for investors to understand the process of what they're doing. So her pitch sounds a little something like this. And let me break it down as I go through. It's easier if I break it down so you can actually see. The opening is what I call the reason for being, right? The reason for being basically explains to your audience why you're there in the first place. So she would say, I'm Sue Osdemer, I'm the CEO of Xro. Up until now, I had my dream job. I was the CEO of General Electric, small industrial motor division. That was something I had always wanted to do. I grew up in an electric motor family. One day, a company came asking me to look at their technology and tell me they discovered something. I ignored them for more than 6 months. Finally, I said one phrase that changed my entire life. I said, okay, show me the technology. And they did. And less than 30 days later, I had tendered my resignation at General Electric and moved my entire company my family to Calgary, Alberta, to take over as the CEO of Xro Technology. So that's her opening for being. About 20 seconds, says, here's why I'm here. Now listen, you don't know anything about this company, but your brain is already like, okay, it's a technology company. There's something coming here that makes her do it. Then she would explain, and I'll walk you through this after. This is the what. What is it? Is the first stage in the presentation, right? What is it? Xro is a software design company that creates software for the electric motor industry that makes electric motors smarter and more efficient. That's the what, first phrase, okay? We do that by a process called coil switching technology, where we can take the coils of an electric motor and in real time, electronically switch them. Therefore, the output of the motor is dictated by the controller. That becomes the new brains of the electric motor industry. Okay, that's how it works. Now, then we'll go into, are you sure? What's the result? Effectively, an electric motor can deliver high speed and high torque from the same electric motor. Tesla, for example, has multiple motors to give you the high torque off the line, that's 0 to 60, and the high speed of any passenger car. With Xro technology, we can deliver both high speed and high torque from the same motor. Okay. And then we go into the, can you do it? Now it's like, okay, I understand the basics. And anybody who you don't even have to understand electric motors. Now you understand it, right? We design software. It makes your electric motor smarter. We do it because we switch the coils in real time. You used to have 2 motors to get the same output. Now I can get the same motor. Even if you don't understand anything about electric motors, you get the basics of it. Then she goes into, can she actually do it? What's the final piece? And it's, our software is not plug and play. We have to design the software specifically for each manufacturer. So we take our manufacturer partners, put them in a lab, and we design the algorithm directly with that partner. And the software is then designed specifically for that manufacturer. And that's how we get the most effective and efficient output from each electric motor design. That's her pitch. And I think now that she's into it, it's about 2 minutes and 25 seconds.
Incredible.
And every investor gets it right away. What is it? How does it work? Are you sure about that? And then can you actually do it? Okay. Now we've got what we call a framework of understanding. Now, you as an investor may want to say, okay, what's your earnings ratio? What you have real questions, but you're now starting from a place of engagement. And so everybody's going to ask different things. Have you done this? Have you talked to these people? What's your price here? What's your burn rate? How does this switching? If they're talking to an engineer, they ask different questions than if they talk to a bank about investing. But the core is, how do I get rid of all the fluff, right? She didn't talk about what was possible. She didn't talk about how this is going to change the electric motor industry. None of that. I'm going to tell you what all this is, simplest version of it. You're going to be interested, and then we can really talk.
And I noticed a few things. Number one, I noticed that you clear all questions out. So every question that needs to be answered is in the pitch. And number two, you clear out all objections. It cuts out every objection out there. So at the end, it's a yes or no. It's as simple as that. I've given you enough information. How should a salesperson right now simplify their message instead of using that typical sales script? And I say typical because we need to learn how to bridge that gap between old school and new school, a script and the storytelling. So someone that saw old school right now, the baby boomers, how do you bridge that gap?
I mean, it's hard because I usually get two types of CEO, the introvert and the extrovert, right? The extrovert is actually harder to deal with because they have personality and they like people and they want to talk to people and they want to do their thing, right? The introvert is like, oh God, I don't want to talk to people. I don't want to make this presentation. The introvert is so easy to train because I show them, listen, you don't have to be special. You don't have to wear a suit and tie. You don't got to use any phrases. Forget your neurolinguistic program. You don't need any of that. All you need is to lay out the information clearly and concisely. I'm going to put it in these 4 categories. We're going to cut out everything that you want to say and only focus on what needs to be said, and it will change everything. They are awesome. The extrovert sort of classic sales is really hard because they want to be like, hey, what if I told you I had an investment opportunity that could make you 10 times your money by the end of the year? Would that interest you? Right? Like that's where they go to. That's called the state and prove method, which is I'm going to state something that you want, and then I'm going to show you how to get it. We don't respond like that anymore. That's not the way an elevator pitch works. If we had a time machine, go back to the 70s, that elevator pitch might work and somebody leans in and goes, ooh, tell me more. Now they're like, oh God, I don't want to hear this. So I try to explain to people is to switch over to what's called the inform and lead method. What is that big promise, right? The big promise is you're going to make big money and you're going to make a big return on your investment is the big promise. Put that lead to that. You want to lead to it, not open with it. So how would you explain that to me? So I, as the audience, might say that, oh, hey, so I can make a huge return on my investment then, right? Like you want to lead someone there and you start with the absolute core information. What is it? Let's just start with that. It's an investment opportunity. We trade in oil and gas futures. We blank, blank, blank. I'm a fund. I'm a accountant with a thing. What are you? What do you do? How do you do it? Like that's just the core of what we want, right? And once you build to that, then that hook, it's the hook of the story fits. I'll give you a great example. When I sold Bar Rescue with John Taffer, very popular show. The hook of that show, the promise of it, the elevator pitch technically could have been an old school way. Hey, I've got the Gordon Ramsay of bars and nightclubs, right? That's what John Taffer is. He is big, expert, loud, crazy, in your face. Gordon Ramsay, bars and nightclubs. If I would have gone to he said up front, the president of the network would have rolled his eyes. It was like, great. Well, he doesn't have an accent. He's not as charming. Like, it would have been a disaster. That's not what I did. I went in and said, the show's called Bar Rescue. Here's how it works. Each week, we're going to take a new bar that's struggling and we're going to make it over. Here's how we're going to do that. And I walked them through that piece of it. Then I introduced them to John Taffer, who's going to do that. He's been doing this, 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 and this. And then I went through those details. And the network president in that meeting said to me, oh, so he's like our Gordon Ramsay for bars and nightclubs. That is how you build a pitch today to avoid the pitfalls of your audience going, oh, crap, another salesman. Great. And them discounting everything you're promising is you've got to let them feel it and come to it.
And right now, subconsciously more than ever, we are being told and showed that the pitch should be shorter and shorter. I mean, you created 3 minutes, but you're on Instagram and you're cut down to a 60-second video. You do an ad right now on YouTube or anywhere, Facebook, Instagram, they want to cut you down to 60 seconds. You're sending a WhatsApp voice note or a Facebook or Instagram voice note, 60 seconds. So, we got to be to the point. Hey, I want you to take a quick split second of your time. All I want you to do is hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications. I want to update you when I have a next iconic guest on my show. Stay in student mode.
Hey, it's Brant Pinvidic, and you're tuning into the Millionaire Student Show with Sashin.
But we're living in a time right now where people's attention span is so low that we are constantly being distracted by the noise coming in from the outside world. Our phones as well as those notifications. How should we tell a story in order not to lose their attention?
Well, you listen, I make the joke all the time. It's taken me 20 years to learn how to say things in 3 minutes. And 3 minutes is not just an idea of how to shorten something. It really is, if you do it right, you could hold your audience's attention for up to 3 minutes. And that is a core process of getting someone's attention and holding it. And to do that, you've got to start at the beginning. And one of the exercises that I use a lot, this meets that, which can explain your idea in 3 to 5 going, it's that. And I'll give you a perfect example. One of the recent shows I pitched was basically, I'm trying not to pitch it well. I got to pitch it sort of off so that you understand how to do it. So it's basically the idea of people, contestants running around trying to solve problems, getting from point A to point B, and they're doing huge, massive problems to solve. And that's the only way they can get to point A to point B is to overcome their obstacles in the way. So that's sort of the basic idea. The way I would work on actual pitch it, I would start at the very beginning with a client. All right, that idea is the amazing race for the smartest people in the world. So you got 5 or 6 words, and you kind of understand what it is just from that. The amazing race is a bunch of hapless nitwits roaming around trying to get from point A to point B, traveling the world, overcoming obstacles like building an IKEA desk, right? If I say the amazing race for the smartest people in the world, you're already thinking to yourself, okay, racing around the world, completing challenges, but really smart people. So those challenges must be really difficult. Then I would go to the next phase. And with a client, it's okay, now that you have that, you do that in 5 words. I'm going to give you 25 words now. Come back to me again with 25 words. Now I might be okay, how am I going to structure this? Because you got to keep it in that. And then if you get 25 words, that kind of explains it. Okay, now you can have 50 words. Now you can have 125. Now you can have 1 paragraph. And if you do it in that I call that the pyramid of information. If you can do that effectively, by the time you get to your 3 minutes, it's okay, if I can get you to listen to me for 3 minutes about an idea, I will be able to get all of the valuable elements in there, stuffed in there, all the points I want. So by the time you're okay, do I want to talk to you further? Am I ready to buy? You have the valuable information. And that is the most you can possibly do to try to get as much valuable information before they decide yes or no.
There's definitely people right now tuning in that do longer presentations. My very first sales company that I was involved in, the average presentation was around about 25 to 30 minutes. And maybe it's 15 for someone, maybe it's 20 or even 30 minutes. I mean, they need to resell their prospect or future customer every minute to listen to them for the next minute. But how does that 3-minute rule now affect them?
Well, it's really about the first 3 minutes. Okay. It's about engaging your audience in those first 3 minutes so they come to I call it the foundation of understanding. So they fundamentally understand the core values that you are bringing and the core of the information. You're not saving things for minute 17, minute 9, right? And again, it's the 4 steps called the WAC method, which is here's what I do. Here's how I do it. Here's how I can prove it. and here's how we work together. I lay that out in the first 3 minutes, sometimes less. And then from that moment on, we are we're in the engagement phase. And there's 2 phases to every pitch, the information phase and the engagement phase. And everybody who's pitched has had this happen, where the person you're pitching to asks a question and you're like, oh, I'm going to get to that in 1 minute. Yeah, hold on. Yeah, I talk about that in just a second. Okay. That's because you've accidentally jumped over and crossed into engagement phase, where whatever information you were laying out didn't register exactly with your audience. So they want to clarify something. And now they want to engage. You are battling the entire time. And everybody's had meetings like that. I've had meetings like that. Okay. If you lay it out, and the book is a step-by-step guide, how to take everything of value about your business, product, or service and convey it clearly and concisely in 3 minutes or less, because you are basically giving them all the roadmap to the information. You will never get interrupted again in the middle of a pitch if you do that, because they will listen, they will build their understanding, and now they're like, okay, load up, engage time. And now it's like, I have questions. I have things I want to know. Let me go talk to the board. I need to ask my wife. Like, all of those things are real. You can't skip them, but you want them to do that with as much valuable information as possible.
I've heard you talk about approach motivation. What is the theory behind that method?
So approach motivation is a very deep scientific study about what makes people driven to engage with a product, a brand, a person, right? Advertising has been studying the theory of approach motivation for the last 80 years. And we used to believe, like I said before, that it was state and prove. I'm going to show you a tasty burger, and then I'm going to tell you how to get it. I'm going to say, would you like to lose weight and eat anything you want? And you're like, yes, I would. Then you'll pay attention to me, right? I'm going to get your attention by something big and flashy, and then I'll fill it in after once I have your attention. And what they discovered 2 years ago was that the theory of approach motivation has taken a 180-degree turn, because we've been so pounded by marketing and promises, and we're so cynical. But now approach motivation works in the reverse as well, which is attention and focus creates desire. So not only what you desire will you focus on, but what you focus on, you'll actually desire. And that's the core of what we do in entertainment and movies and television, is we create your desire by gaining your focus. If you look at your favorite movie, they don't tell you the ending and then explain why that's important. They tell you the characters. They tell you a little bit of the story. They show you why the character's struggling. They show you the opportunities he's missed. They build your story. They get you to focus in a theater, on a screen. After about an hour or so, you want that ending. Every time you watch Rocky, every time you watch The Shawshank Redemption, every time you watch these movies, you want it to end just like that. You want him to escape from prison every time. It's because you have been focusing on it, and therefore it creates your desire. And you can do that in a picture presentation. You can get someone to focus on your story, your information as you're building it. They will want it to end up the way you want it to end up, because they are following along. They want it to be a good deal. They want it to be available right now. They want to change their accounting practice. They want these things to happen. But if you tell them that's going to happen at the beginning, they will not believe you. And they will spend the rest of the meeting trying to disprove what you're saying. If you lead them there, they will be drawn to you. They will be motivated to approach, is what it's called.
Let's just say someone has the skill set of storytelling and the 3-minute rule. What else should they have to perfect their craft? Would it be energy? Would it be tonality? Would it be voice projection?
No, none of those things. None, no, don't even think about that. Tonality, energy, passion, those kind of things, those are too dangerous. You can ruin your 3 minutes just by having the wrong attitude. If you're trying too hard, people perceive that, right? That's not confidence. Confidence comes for when you read that 3-minute rule and you're like, oh my God, like this is the best pitch I've ever had. Like it's so good, somebody else is going to get it. And you don't try any of the other things. It doesn't matter what you wear. It doesn't matter how you talk. Like I've had my pitches translated into Mandarin in front of me while I'm sitting there in front of an audience. It's like, you're just sitting there and you say a few words and then they translate it. And by the time you get the response, like So I'm in the hotel room going through my presentation going, well, that's not worth being translated. No, that's not worth being translated, right? Like it focuses it down. It's a great story in the book. I've had a client that I was trying to give him all these points and he was getting ready to go on to his presentation and investors. And we just started working together and I was fixing stuff. And it was like being like a golf pro where you go have a golf lesson. You're on the driving range, bang. Oh my God, it's amazing. Golf pros giving you all of these thoughts. It's amazing, bang. You get on the course and now you got too many things in your mind bashing and you're all over the place. And that's what happened to him. He got on stage, went to disaster. He was stumbling on every single word. He was sweating. He couldn't remember. He literally had to go to the slides and just kind of read them and kind of like go through it piece by piece. It was a terrible presentation, but the information was brilliant and it was laid out crisp and clean in simple bullet points. And the investors at the conference were dealing with all of these other guys who would start their presentation saying, our new gene therapy will change the way healthcare is done in America. And the audience goes, oh, not another one of these guys. Whereas Peter in this moment was just trying to say like, okay, here's what we do and here's how we do it. And here's why our balance sheet looks like this. And people were like, oh, okay. And they were asking questions. So if you have a great 3 minutes and you have a product that you're really proud of, take a deep breath and step back and don't risk screwing it up. If you're going to be passionate about something, make sure it's a fact. Do not be passionate about your opinions. If anything in your 3-minute rule pitch could have the phrase, I think, we believe, it could be, then that needs to be flat. Don't put anything on it. That's not a fact. That's an opinion. And the audience doesn't want you telling them what their opinion should be. It'd be like saying, you should be really excited about this. This is something you should want to spend your money on. You're stupid if you don't invest in this. That's what they hear. You don't want that. If it's a fact, then you can be like, we were really excited. The sales grew by 23%. You could be excited about that. You can be passionate about that. That's real. Not, this is going to be a whole new revolution for this. Like, no. Your definition there different. Stay out of that. That's danger zone.
I love your passion in, with the topic because you can see you've been through it over and over and over again. You've been through multiple pitches. But looking back at your life right now, is there anything you regret, or maybe what would you have changed to be more successful in life? Not just financially, but the 4 pillars in life, which I call the 4 pillars to mastery: health, wealth, spirituality, and relationships. Is there anything right now that you feel like you could have corrected on autopilot on the way to the top?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a cliche answer to say like, hey, everything that happened to me led me to where I am now, and I like it where I am now. True. But, and I teach a lot, and I do a lot of seminars and stuff in high schools and colleges. And I tell them the biggest sort of life secret for me, if I was looking back, is, you can't look at someone's highlight reel and think that's a roadmap to success. And for me, if I didn't always try to take the shortcut, I would have got here sooner. But for me, it was always like, I have a lot of, again, I have a big ego. I have abilities. I'm good in a room. People tend to sort of gravitate toward me personality wise. So I end up leaning on that too much. And I end up thinking I can skip the line, skip the process, go right to the result. And it took me a long time to learn that if I had just put in the time and energy to do it properly in the right structure, I'd actually get there faster. And I say on stage, never try to take the shortcut. It is always the longer way around. And in life, that is just absolutely true. You can't skip the line anymore. It's just, the world is too competitive, and good isn't good enough. Right? It has to be incredible to make it. And you can't be incredible at something if you're doing 15 things at once. You can't be a jack of all trades and find success. You got to do it. You got to do the right way. You got to put in a little work, and then you can amplify, and then you can leverage the work into massive success. If you don't amplify and leverage it, you could have pretty good success. But if you've got some skill and ability, you can amplify that into mega success. But at its core, it's still putting in some of the hours, doing the work, getting the fundamentals, getting the basis, putting those things in place and then building from there. I always wanted to skip that step.
As a coach that consults for many companies, CEOs out there, what drives you? Is it the fulfillment that they monetize their 3-minute script, their 3-minute pitch, or is it personal goals? Is it your journey and your process of achievement?
I mean, I'm a pretty basic guy. Like, I just like being important and I like being valued. And what I found is when I get out of my core industry where everybody was doing what I was doing, and I have something that I do that nobody else does, and I'm dealing with Fortune 100 CEO who I can't do anything he does. There's just an ego play, and ego is a simple way of doing it, but it makes me feel more important and I feel valued. And that's just something I'm kind of addicted to a little bit. And I remember specifically I had a big biotech company. I was going down to Florida to consult with them. And, they have people in the companies and founders of the companies that have wings of the Miami hospital named after them. It's like, why would a television producer be in this board meeting trying to tell them how to do what they do? And I realized I'm not telling them to do what they do. I'm telling them to do what they don't do well. And everybody has those things where they're great at something and where they have deficiencies. And so for me to walk into some of the most important people that I would consider in the world and be able to do something for them of value is I don't know how you avoid doing that. And that it excites me. And with the success of the book, I've been able to do that across different industries. And it's been really great.
If there's anything right now that you wish you knew in the pitching and sales world earlier, what would it be?
I think that you can say less. You can say less and get more. The less you say, the more confident you will be. And, the other real piece of it is to don't chase. I used to have to chase people for sales. That's the way I used to think about it. And now it's no. It's here's my information. If you like it, let's talk. If not, lose my number. That feeling, if you genuinely feel like that, because if you don't want it, that's fine. Somebody else will. Because I've got it to pitching to a point where it's I've nailed this. And that attitude and not having to just keep yapping about something, I just wish I would have known that earlier and discovered it earlier. I would have sold more TV shows. Everything would be better.
Brant, where can people get your book from? I know I'm going to put the link below, but
3minuterule.com has lots of links to anywhere you want to get it, signed copies and lots of stuff there. I'm available on any of those platforms at Brant Pinvidic. You can follow me. And I think the book is still killing it on Amazon right now. So you can hop there and get it. And so happy to connect with anybody who's interested.
Great. And before we wrap it up, final question. I always ask every single one of my guests this. What does self-talk sound like with Brant Pinvidic?
I can sum that up in one word: joy. That is my core driving factor right now. I spent a lot of years in the pursuit of career excellence and monetary gain. And I have so many friends and colleagues that have so far exceeded wealth and prestige that I coveted, that I would have said would be the greatest achievement of my life. I have many people who have blown past my ideas 100 times over and they still show up for work every day. And you can say, yes, it's because they enjoy it still, or it's because they've trained themselves that that's the only thing that gives them joy. And so my functionality right now is to try to find joy as much as I can squeeze into every day. What can I do today that brings me joy? And I'm training myself how to experience it in other areas besides work. Because if you train yourself to only get it during office hours, quote unquote, it will be the only way you ever get it. And that's not something I wanted to do. So I'm really working on finding that feeling in other areas of life, excelling in other areas besides just the office.
Brant, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being on the Millionaire Student Show. And thank you for not just educating people, but shifting their journey and shifting their pitch in a way that they can monetize it and they can literally get passionate about it and stick to it. thank you so much for being on the show.
You got it.